As promised, we are back on the sweat with DraftKings contributor Kenny Ducey and RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Guys, let's chase our fade some DFS and sportsbook plays on tonight's 7-game NBA slate. Kenny, starting with an interesting choice at 10K and above tonight. So you got Luka against the Heat, Giannis against the Nets, Steph Curry against the Pelicans, Giannis coming off a game in which he put up 74.5 DK fantasy points against those Nets on Sunday. So you're going to chase or fade that Giannis is the best high-priced dude tonight?
Absolutely have to chase here, Jesse. When you look at the defensive matchups, you already have an edge with Giannis. The Heat are 14th in defensive efficiency. They haven't been as good lately over the past 10 games, but over the course of the season, one of the better defensive teams in the league. The Pelicans, over the last 10 games, they're actually second in defensive efficiency. The Nets, they're down there in 23rd. They've been one of the worst defenses all season long. That hasn't changed over the last 10 games. And when you look at Giannis, his usage rate has been over 46% in the last 2 games. That is just absolutely insane. He's gone for over 5x value. He's almost gone for 6x value in his last 5 games. If you take out that game he got hurt and played like 5 minutes or whatever. So I really like Giannis in this spot. I hate to be the guy who just goes chalk, 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 but I cannot fade him in this. He's got the best spot of any of the high-priced guys, and he's been getting so much of the ball and doing so much with it.
All right, Nick, do you agree Giannis is a can't fade tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument, based on how you want to construct your lineup that you could fade him. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I think there's a pretty good chance that this game plays out fairly similarly to how Sundays did. It's not like the Nets were missing some Giannis stopper on their roster who's going to be back for this game. That's kind of their one weakness right now. And James Harden coming back in the playoffs isn't going to help stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. When they lost LaMarcus Aldridge, who's not a great defender at this point in his career, that really hurt their big man depth, which is kind of their one weakness on this roster. And you can't ask Kevin Durant to guard Giannis one-on-one. They're a little bit hesitant to kind of build the wall that we've seen work against Giannis, from teams like Miami in the past. And if you do that, all of a sudden you're opening up shooters like Drew Holiday and Dante DiVincenzo and Chris Middleton on the perimeter. So, maybe we see a slightly different approach from Brooklyn. Obviously, they're going to try to do what they can to prevent Giannis from putting up 49 points in this game. But I don't know what that strategy is. They don't have anyone, and most teams don't, to be fair, who can stick with Giannis one-on-one. So I think this is another really advantageous matchup, and he probably doesn't get to 75 DraftKings points, but I think he's going to have a really good chance to put up a huge night.
All right, let's talk about the Nets, okay? No James Harden for them, but Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant should both be available. Nick, they differ by $300 in salary. Chase one, fade the other against Milwaukee.
This is a decent bounce back opportunity for Kyrie, playing the same team twice in 3 days. You get a look at how it went on Sunday, make some adjustments, and probably come back with a better game on Tuesday. But at the same time, Drew Holiday is going to blanket Kyrie Irving again for 35 plus minutes like he did on Sunday. And it's Kyrie Irving, so he's still going to manage a pretty solid stat line. But he was 8 of 21 from the field. He was 2 of 8 from 3, had 4 turnovers, forced some bad shots, I thought, late in that game. And that's what Drew Holiday does to even the elite guards in the league. So for me, it still has to be Kevin Durant. He is matchup proof at this point. Even Giannis after the game said, Durant's the most talented player that he's ever gone up against. And Giannis doesn't just say things like that. So for me, it has to be Durant. If you're only looking at $100 difference in salary, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie bounces back with a higher point total. But to me, the floor that Durant offers is so worth it.
All right, Kenny, you agree? You got to go with KD here?
Yeah, it's really boring when you disagree with the other guy, but I definitely hear what Nick is saying, and I agree with him. When you look at the matchup there that he just spoke about, Giannis against Kevin Durant, we only saw that on the last possession of the game. We only saw it down the stretch. We didn't see that all game long. Now, the question is, will the Bucks throw Giannis on Kevin Durant all game long? Because he certainly was able to stop him down the stretch of that last time that they met. But for the majority of the game, he got Pat Connaughton and PJ Tucker on him. So as long as that's going to happen, yeah, Durant is the far and away the better option here. He's scoring 12 more DK fantasy points per game over the last 5 than Irving. He's played more minutes over the last 2. Kyrie had 40 DK fantasy points and was used on just 28% of those possessions against Milwaukee. Durant 62 fantasy points, 40% usage, 4 more minutes. I could go on and on here, but for $100 more, you're getting the far and away better player here. The difference has been just giant, much more than $100 would indicate.
All right, guys, Sacramento is banged up. They should be without De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, and Harrison Barnes tonight against OKC. So chase or fade. Kings center Richaun Holmes is your favorite value play tonight at $6,300, Kenny.
Fading. It's the right idea, but I'm targeting Marvin Bagley III as a fellow the third. Marvin Bagley III at $5,000, 40 DK fantasy points in 34 minutes against Dallas. He is the more talented offensive player of the two. What I'm looking at here, he had 9 boards against Dallas and of course the 23 points. So the rebounds had been there for him. They bounced to him. And as long as Richaun Holmes isn't rebounding the ball 18 times in this game, I think Bagley should easily get, 7 to 10 rebounds, and that should put him in line for a very, very good night. As I mentioned, the 23 points against Dallas, that is what you get with Marvin Bagley. You get a post scorer, and I think given the fact that he's still young, the fact that he missed a lot of time down the stretch, the Kings should be throwing him out there for 35-plus minutes here, trying to get him a little more developed. Otherwise, his dad's just going to tweet out that the Kings need to move him. I mean, his dad has been a real big problem lately, so he's not going to be on the court, though. I like Marvin Bagley.
Kenny Ducey the third. Who knew? All right, Nick, I don't know if you're like the second or junior or the third or what, but okay, cool. Just checking. You going with Holmes as your favorite value play tonight at 6,300, or are you looking elsewhere?
I mean, he's definitely not my favorite value play. Saddiq Bey in Detroit is someone that I really like tonight. He's kind of been one of the very few players on that Detroit roster who's been immune to the rest. And, it doesn't really matter who's starting around him. He's still playing 30-plus minutes on most nights. He shot the ball really well of late. I mean, talking about Holmes specifically, it worries me a little bit that they're without De'Aaron Fox. I mean, we haven't really received an update on Halliburton, but I'm not expecting that to be great based on how that injury looked on Sunday night. Wouldn't be surprised if he's done for the year. I mean, Holmes is not exactly a guy that creates his own offense. Even without Fox, his shot attempts have sustained. He's at right about 10, 11 per game. But like Kenny said, you need Richaun Holmes to have massive rebounding totals and shot blocking totals for him to really produce the kind of value that you're looking for. And he's only produced double-digit rebounds in 1 of his last 11 games. He's starting to split minutes a little bit more with Damian Jones. Chimezie Metu was in the rotation as well. He was injured the last couple of games, but he's not playing these massive minute totals that he was earlier in April and March. It's kind of been 22, 25, 23. He played 25 against Dallas last night. So I think I'm going to stay away from Richaun Holmes. I like the Bagley call, though, if you do want to stick with Sacramento.
All right, Nick, let's go on over to the DK Sportsbook. Which spread are you going to be chasing tonight?
Man, it's a big number, but Phoenix minus 13 at Cleveland. I mean, the Cavaliers have reached this point in the season, and it feels like we've been here the last 3 or 4 years where the wheels just completely come off. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy to think that back in December and January, this team was off to a hot start, and we were talking about them as, maybe this like 9 or 10 seed in the East. And here we are again, and it's yet another, season that happens to the Cavaliers whenever LeBron James is not on the roster. And I mean, they're just starting to hit rock bottom. I mean, Kevin Love is openly talking about playing for other teams, which I don't know if that's some sort of like reverse tampering, but nobody seemed to care about that yesterday when that came out. Colin Sexton's being openly criticized by opposing players, telling other Cavs players that he's not going to pass them the ball. It just feels like the wheels have completely come off for Cleveland. And I don't think, if you're the coaching staff or management, I don't think you care, because at this point you're just trying to get as low in the standings and as high in the lottery as you possibly can. And then you look at the other side of this game. I mean, Phoenix still has something to play for, with the hope that more fans are going to be allowed in arenas over the next couple of months. I think they want that 1 seed. I think that's maybe more important to them than it is for other teams in the Western Conference, especially with it looking like the Lakers could maybe end up being the 7 seed in the West. I don't think you want to be the 2 and have to play LA in round 1. You'd rather play whatever team falls to that 8. So they're a half game behind Utah coming into tonight. Still plenty to play for the Phoenix Suns.
All right, Kenny, which spread are you chasing tonight? I mean, that was a big one from Nick.
Yeah, that segues really well into this answer. And I do like the Suns here. Garland also didn't practice yesterday. That could just be a whole nother issue for Cleveland. Yep. But I am taking the Raptors plus 9.5. I've been a member of Clippers Nation all season long. I've been backing the Clippers against the spread. It's gone very well for me. Without their stars, on the second nights of back-to-backs against good teams, they've managed to cover almost every time. But here is where I think the buck stops. The Clippers have looked like just they have nothing to play for lately. They're locked into that 4th seed right now. They're not going to go to the 5th seed. They'd have to lose a lot of games to get there. The 3rd seed is looking like it's out of reach with how well the Nuggets are playing. And the top 2 teams, I mean, I think are 3 or 4 games ahead of them at this point. So the Clippers are kind of just complacent over the last 10 games. They've ranked 14th in offensive efficiency, 13th in defensive efficiency. I don't know where this team has gone, but they just seem like they don't care right now. It seems like they're saving their energy for the postseason. Yeah, Kawhi and Paul George are back here, but I don't know if that really changes the fact that this team has just not played really good defense. I mean, you've seen the Clippers, namely, and other teams out there play good defense without their stars. That just hasn't happened, so I'm concerned about the role players here. And Toronto does have something to play for, right? They're in that 11th spot. They're trying to fight their way back into the postseason. Over the last 10 games, they're 5th in three-point percentage, 15th in offense. So they've been scoring the ball pretty well against a lethargic defense. I think the line is right here anyway. I think the Toronto Raptors can win this game and at the very least keep it close. They are really, really fighting hard right now to get into the postseason. You got to love the performances they're getting. And that's without Anunoby here and Gary Trent Jr. They've still managed to score the basketball. I think they can get it done without their big names.
All right, guys, real quick on this last one. Slate Approved Pick Time. Kenny, your favorite DFS or sportsbook play tonight, what is it?
It's just got to be Marvin Bagley here at 5,000. I mean, I just think that the Kings, again, have all the incentive in the world to play this guy 35 minutes. He's one of their young guys. Even in a blowout, I think he plays. So I just can't pass up the scoring prowess here of the lefty.
All right, where are you going to go on this one, Nick?
I like PJ Washington for Charlotte over 14.5 points tonight. Actually, that number's been pumped up to 15.5 in the last 5 minutes. They're at Detroit. Giannis over 31.5 against Brooklyn. We talked about that at the top of the segment. And then if you're a little scared off by that Phoenix number, if 13's a bit too high, you can get the Suns minus 7.5 at the half, which, if you're worried about them maybe taking their foot off the gas, I think that's maybe a bit of a safer play.